All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Thursday, August 28th. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action today of the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with long and short setups like we do every daily recap. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with a live stream at the open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. So we all survived NVIDIA's earnings, and the market responded incredibly well. We had a little gap down on NVIDIA yesterday, or coming into the day, but the Nasdaq actually gapped up to start the day, just showing strength throughout the market. We had a little test of the 10-day moving average, rallied back, closed a majority of this resistance gap, and looks like it's set to continue higher. Really, I really love the action out of the Nasdaq today. S&P 500 can't be mad at this new all-time high. Congratulations to everyone that has been long. Great action today. Touched off the 5-day moving average, closed right at the high of the day, and just shows that the Nasdaq was acting a little bit heavy. Lots of volatility through here, but with that shaping up, money rotating to the rest of the market with the S&P 500 acting well. That's just a sign that money wasn't leaving the market altogether. It was just rotating into some other spots, which is very healthy in a bull market. IWO, this is the growth stocks of the Russell 2000. Awesome action again with a little gap up, closed kind of mid-range today, but still plenty of air to the 5-day and the 10-day moving average. Really great action after Friday. The speech from Jerome Powell, just tight action into the 5-day and now pushing out from there. ARKK, another kind of indicator that I use just to measure how growth stocks are acting in the market. And last 4 days have been just extremely tight. You have the 5, the 10, the 20-day underneath price. A little bit weaker close today overall, but I still really like this action. You had that undercut of the 50-day moving average and support gap on the 20th. Nice action on Friday, and now we get nice and tight here. So I expect this to break to the upside, but breaking to the upside would be nice to see and more confirmation of a strong market. Now, Bitcoin still a little bit weak today. Well, we're using IBIT to track that. Little rally up into the 10-day and then closed a little bit weak. The group itself, like Ethereum looks good, Solana looks good, but Bitcoin is still lagging. So not quite sure what to make of that, but we'll keep an eye on it. Next to the liquid leaders, we'll just sort this by price percent change. And the stock that just cannot go down, BE, up another 7.8% today. Gap up, rally, close at the high of the day. We did pick up in volume here, which you would rather not see as you get extended. But still, I mean, you can't argue with great price action. This was one that I'm kicking myself. Really should have gotten in on the 20th on the undercut of the 10-day and the support gap. Perfect risk reward spot, and I missed it. And now you're seeing just awesome, awesome price action here. Reddit, yesterday we had a reversal at the resistance gap, ugly close right on the 20-day moving average. Today we followed that up with a gap up, opening range break, close right near the high of the day, and into that resistance gap, actually reducing it a little bit. One thing you'll notice if you go back and study past market leaders is if you get an ugly close, either at or ideally right below a key moving average, then gap up the next day, that's not always like the highest probability of a trade to work. But when you do get a gap up that follows through to the upside, that typically will reignite a uptrend. And I'm really hoping that's happening with RBRK. This was a great example of it today, where we this stock was the first to top, made a 100% move, first to kind of start to base out, shook out everyone on the 20th in the space. Really beautiful action on the 20th. And then we had two ugly days here, the 25th and the 26th, with a close under all the key moving averages at the low of the day on a pickup in volume. Really ugly, right? And then the next day you gap up. And I bought this on the opening range break. Today we're getting paid a little bit. We had a nice rally up, what was it, 6.2%, uppercut that resistance gap and close like a little bit low in the range. Hopefully Reddit can do that same thing, where we had the ugly close, gap up, open on the low, close near the high in that resistance gap. So just go through and study some past leaders, and you'll notice that ugly close plus gap up tends to reignite the uptrend. ALAB, awesome action today. Gapped up, open on the low, closed near the high of the day. Little uppercut and fail of the resistance gap. Definitely a name that I'm watching for any pullbacks. Up 5.5% today. SoFi continues to be a fintech leader. Great action today. Open on the low, close near the high, back over the 5-day moving average after yesterday's low volume pullback into that area. Continues to be a monster stock. MP, higher highs, higher lows today. Not much to say, just low volume, but still up 2.9%. So can't complain about that. We had a little reversal at the resistance gap earlier this week on, what was that, Tuesday? Pulled into the 20-day, found support, and now we're just consolidating here. FUTU, the leader in China. Nice shakeout of the 10-day moving average yesterday, kind of a breakout retest of that 177 area. Higher highs, higher lows today, reclaimed or closed basically on the 5-day moving average. Alibaba reports earnings tomorrow, so I hope they crush it because I do have a long position in FUTU, and I assume that would be pretty highly correlated. So go Alibaba. Robinhood continues to act a little bit weak, and I'm surprised by that because fintech, like XLF Financial ETF, which we'll cover in a second, is acting great. SoFi is acting great. The only thing that I might correlate this to is like Bitcoin. Like other cryptos are still acting fine, but maybe because Bitcoin is weak, this is also kind of showing some weakness. But we had a couple like pretty high volatility days back at the beginning of August. And then when we made new highs, we couldn't really trend at new highs. We had a reversal on the 13th, rallied right back up to that area, another reversal on the 19th. Lots of volatility here, so it makes sense that we had a little snapback. And now we snap back, traded tight, lots of weakness yesterday. Even though we were up 0.7% today, doesn't feel like a win compared to the rest of the market. So maybe we have plenty of software names and cybersecurity names start acting well. So Robinhood is potentially going to get replaced here. I really want to keep it around to see how it's going to act to the 50-day and the support gap at $100. But if there are other names more deserving, I'll put them in and take Robinhood out. Uber, great action today off the support gap, undercut it on the minute. You saw highest volume since the opening 1 minute bar. As you undercut the support gap low, reclaimed it immediately, never took out that low a day. Great buy point, and we closed back over the 10 and the 20-day moving average, finishing the day up 0.67%, 0.66. And then NVIDIA, lots of volatility today. We rallied in the morning, then we reversed lower, then we lost the 20-day, rallied back up. Lots of volatility, no really price appreciation or depreciation. End of the day, down 0.8%, still above the 10 and 20-day moving averages. Not really sure to make of this action, but money definitely was not leaving the market altogether because the rest of the leaders acting great. Lots of software names started to act phenomenal. So I'm not super worried about this. If we close below the 20 and below today's low, maybe that's a little bit more concerning, but that hasn't happened yet. So um, that would just be like one kind of warning sign to me, but we're not there yet. Getting into the industry ETFs, we'll go through a couple here. Nuclear and uranium theme continues to act well. We had the shakeout under the 50-day moving average, and then one, two, three, four gap ups since that. Exactly what you want to see after a shakeout is panic buying to get back into the name or the theme. And that's exactly what we've gotten here. Now it's like a double bottom base, starting to tighten up, keeping an eye on these two themes going forward. Software, I talked about this a lot in the Discord this morning, where if you take a look at the industry ETF and that is putting in a potential low, then that's when you want to start taking a look at the leaders of that group because the leaders after the ETF is putting in a low is already going to be a couple steps of the cycle ahead. So they've already put in a low, they've already rallied up through moving averages. Chances are they pulled back, putting in a higher low, and now they're ready to really work up the right side of their base or make new highs. And software has been super weak. Like if you tried to trade it all of August, you probably got shaken out of a lot of names. Finally, we put in the major shakeout on the 20th there to the support gap. rallied up, put in a higher low, and then back-to-back gap up zones yesterday through the 5 day, today through the 10 and the 20 day on some good volume. Now the ETF itself can kind of rally up, put in a lower high, sorry, a higher low. And when it does that, look for software names to be making new highs because those are the stocks that we want to be focused on. Solar ETF continues to act really good. We had an ugly close yesterday, followed up by a gap up and closed back over the 5 day moving average. Like how this is tightening up, some other solar names could start to participate. Enphase, looking at you, to really get this theme going. Cybersecurity, very similar to IGV, the software ETF, where really rough action. End of July, or I guess all of July, all of August, started to shape up the bottom side of this base, like the bottom here, higher lows, higher highs. We get into the 50-day moving average, and CrowdStrike reported earnings yesterday, gap down. I guess we'll just bring up that chart. Gap down to the 200-day moving average, and this gap zone found support and got bought all the way back up. So when bad news comes out and good price action happens, that's usually what changes the trend of that stock or that theme. So the fact that first stock that comes to mind when I think cybersecurity is CrowdStrike, even though price wise it's not acting like a leader, the fact that we had that kind of news failure from the downside right back up makes me feel more confident in cybersecurity and software themes going forward. MSOS, kind of a ugly reversal on volume today. That's good for me. I don't have a position yet. I will be watching the 10-day moving average and gap zone around $5 as a potential pullback area to get in. XLE Energy ETF continues to turn around. We've made new highs since the low of the pullback, finally, and it's just another group that is starting to participate in this bull market. It feels like every single group is participating at this point. A couple others. KWeb not doing much at the 20-day moving average. Again, Alibaba reports tomorrow after the close. Financials ETF, new closing high, just tight price action over the 5 day moving average on declining volume. That's beautiful consolidation. Nothing wrong there. Biotechs, not loving the action, but low volume close. Closed flat on the day, still above the 5 day moving average. So I'm still in LABU. As long as we keep trending over the 20-day moving average, I'll stay in that position. And then XRT is one that made new 52-week highs, actually kind of like multi-year highs, not all-time highs, but multi-year highs today. Closed a little bit lower, but still over the 5 day moving average. And again, it just seems like another group starting to participate in this rally. Before we get into the long and short setups, do you want to jump over to the NAAIM Active Investors Exposure Index? We got an update on that today. It updates every Thursday, taking into consideration Wednesday's closing positions. If you follow my channel, you know that over 95%, and I start to get a little cautious about putting on new long exposure, especially like on breakouts, get a little bit cautious, try to move my stops to break even, take profit a little bit quicker when we're up over 95%. This week, we saw exposure drop a little bit back under that 95% threshold to 92. Still elevated, but honestly, this is just fund managers doing their job right. The market's in an uptrend, leaders are acting well. As long as we're not over 95%, and like 98 is over 95, but it's not like crazy, crazy high. This can get up to like, I want to say 118 or 120 was the max I've ever seen it at. But you could go to their website, download it, all the data from I think it was like 2006, and go through that yourself. But I like that exposure kind of drop down while indexes are at highs, leaders are acting well. Just gives the market a little bit more room to the upside. And then we do have a PCE inflation report coming out tomorrow. If that comes out super hot while everyone's expecting rate cuts, that is something that could kind of change the trajectory of the market. Um, Hopefully, inflation comes in like in line with expectations or a little bit below. But that is something to watch for. That'll come out about an hour before the market opens tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. Getting into the long setups, I had a very hard time narrowing down the long setups, and I had a very hard time finding short setups. That's usually a good sign. I know we are a little bit late in the trend. Exposure's a little bit elevated, and we have PCE tomorrow. So again, keep that piece in mind that if inflation comes in super hot, this can all go away. But until we actually see price action dropping, I would stay pretty bullish. So I've got 15 names here. I'll go through them a little bit quicker. We're sorting this by dollar volume, so most liquid to least liquid up at the top. So Tesla, great action today, came into the 10-day moving average. Saw a lot of people kind of freaking out that it was losing the 5-day intraday, but this is really just building in another higher low in the structure. And we were up for 3 days straight, kind of consolidated yesterday and had a nice shakeout today. In a perfect world, we get like one tight day on Friday, then a gap and go on Monday that we could play. But still watching just like through this 350 area as a potential add-on spot. Starting a new position on at 350 would be a little shaky. I would probably want like that day or two to tighten up to improve like the setup. But I've gone over this. This has been consolidating for like multiple years now, and especially the last couple weeks, we've got the 50, the 20, or 5, 10, 20, 50, and 200 day all on top of each other. Very, very tight action on the weekly chart here. So from contraction comes expansion in one direction or the other. I'm hoping that it breaks to the upside. I do have a position in Tesla already. Um, but it could easily fail. So we'll keep our eye on this one. DoorDash still kind of just chopping between the resistance gap and 20-day moving average above and finding support at the 50-day moving average and, or sorry, resistance gap above, support gap below. We'll look for an undercut and a reclaim of that support gap low as a potential entry. Stop would be around 240. Keep that to 2 or 3%. ALAB talked about this earlier. This is an IPO stock that has just made new all-time highs on their earnings gap up. A green line breakout on an earnings gap where it was up 28% is very, very bullish. We had a little pullback to the 20-day that got supported, bounced back up, got nice and tight, and now we're pushing through this area. Don't want to buy it extended because we do have two gap zones here, but very, very thin. I'm just looking for a pullback into the 10-day moving average and gap zone. Stop would be below the HVC. TEM feels like this is a stock that you definitely want to buy like on weakness instead of strength. And we've now gotten that weakness. We've rallied up into the resistance gap. Let's delete that one into the resistance gap, has pulled back, had a little gap down yesterday and closed under the 10-day moving average. Today, we tried to get it going over the 5 and squatted. So now people are probably taking this off their radar, saying, okay, weak close compared to a strong market. It could break to the downside. And it absolutely could break to the downside. That wouldn't surprise me. But like I talked about with RBRK and what was the other leader? Reddit. If we get we had an ugly close under the 10-day. If we get a gap up tomorrow, that's buyable versus the low of that shakeout. And this stock has a bunch of power potential. So even if you take a loss, like a 1 or 2% loss on this, for me, that would be fine because of the the potential here. AFRM, just looking for an opening range break on this. This is up about 12% after hours into $90. Want to zoom out here. Actually, let's just go to a weekly chart. Beautiful, beautiful weekly chart that we're gapping out of this area. So with fintech being kind of a group to focus on, and this stock has really like performed well lately. I really like how this chart is formed up, and now we're gapping up out of this base. Something to keep an eye on. Celsius, great action after earnings, just accumulated from 50 up to 62. So 24%, 25% rally from the earnings gap up. Now pulling into the 10-day, getting nice and tight. I would just looking for like another quick shake of that 10-day moving average into the gap zone around 57.40 as a potential entry. Then stop would be the 20-day EMA. AS is next. This one in the base here chopped me up pretty good. I think I took three 1% losses on this. Hopefully that's not the case here because we gapped down on earnings, and then the next couple days saw really strong accumulation through this area. That should be a gap. And then made new all-time highs. So when a stock's making new all-time highs and then starts trading tight over the 5-day moving average while volume is declining, that's a group that I want to, or stock that I want to be focused on. And we have the group participating, retail just making a new multi-year high, that XRT ETF. So we've got the theme in play too. This is one of the leaders in that theme, and it's an IPO. So we can go through some pretty quick price discovery to the upside. Just looking for a breakthrough today's high, stop at today's low on this trade. Lemonade, kind of similar with the TEM setup, a name that can move very quickly, has rallied from, what was this, 35 up to 60. So not 100%, but obviously tons of power in this name. Pulled back under the 10-day moving average. We had this ugly close on the 25th. I was actually watching it for a gap up and run here. Didn't quite get through those moving averages, which is fine. Today we got another kind of ugly close compared to the market on even less volume, which is nice. A gap up opening range break is viable versus that 20-day moving average. In a perfect world, we get another weekday tomorrow and we close under the 20-day. And then on Monday, a gap up would be even better setup overall. Because like typically you want the close of the like shakeout day to be the lowest point in the pullback. And we're not there at this point. So maybe not ready for tomorrow. Watch one more day at that 20-day. DULL reported earnings after the close. They're trading at, let's just check the 1 minute chart. They're trading at $15 right now. So 15 puts us right at the 5, the 10, the 20-day moving average. Just wanted to put this on your radar because if we do get like inflation coming down or in line with that PCE report, and that just improves the probability that we're going to get a rate cut, and we're like on a Friday where the market shook off Nvidia's little volatility this morning, we can get some pretty crazy speculative moves in the market. And this name has already showed that it can go from $9 up to $70 very quickly. So we'll keep an eye on that $15 spot for bull. UUUU, great shakeout last week on the 19th. Really like a pivot failure here on massive volume. Immediately retook that area, took out that high price, rallied back even higher. Now we're just watching for a pullback into that gap zone, into the 10-day moving average. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe Monday would be better for that. But that support gap undercut is a spot that I'll be watching versus the 10-day right now. SEDG wanted to put one solar stock on there, and this is consolidating extremely well with closes over the 5-day moving average. You have volume drying up. And it feels like the last couple Fridays, solar stocks have really taken off. So this stock does get pretty linear and does trend well. If you zoom out, like stage 2 uptrend, stage 3 top, stage 4 decline, stage 1 base, now stage 2 uptrend. So because it trends pretty well, it's a name that I want to keep focused on, and it's trading really, really tight in here. So hopefully we can get another Friday like the past two. PSTG, wanted to just talk about it today. Massive, massive double bottom base consolidated here, and then a gap up on the highest volume in a year, a little bit over a year, and highest up volume day since January 2024. Closed right at the high of the day, up, what was this, 30 something, 32%. A name that I would be watching for a little gap up, retest of the high volume close or $80. And then as it comes back through that HVC, that would be the buy point. Stop would be the low of the day. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, that's fine. Like I will be stalking PSTG because this type of move, this type of gap up out of this large of a base is not something to ignore. Speaking of which PGY, if we zoom out here, really, really large base here that we're pushing out of, massive gap down. So really no price action in this entire range up to $82, which is very impressive. Was my main focus coming in on the day, and it gapped up. I didn't want to chase a gap. Of course, this is the one I should have chased, but opened on the high, sorry, opened on the low, closed right near the high of the day, up 8.6%. Now I'm just watching for a breakout retest and a gap zone undercut at that 34 level. By then, the 10-day moving average will catch up, but a main focus for me when we do get that pullback. And then two kind of speculative names just to like play around with. Same with BULL. This one, SLDP, machinery stock that had this big flush on April 7th, 2025, when we put in the low right around 70 cents. From there has rallied up to $5.50, pulled back in the 20-day, rallied up, potentially putting in a higher low here with volume declining, just looking for a break through the high, stop at the low on this name. Then LIDR, I did take this trade on, what would that be? Thursday last week? No, what am I talking about? Monday. Yeah, on Monday, where we gapped up, opening range break, trimmed a little bit into strength, got stopped out of the rest today. But look at the volume that we got today. Just extremely, extremely light compared to the rest of the price action. So even though I honored my stop in real time, have to do that, don't want to take it off my radar because it's a name that has the potential to make very, very quick moves. And we're in a market that makes very, very quick moves. So looking for a little gap up, take out of today's high, stop would be the low of the day, whatever that is tomorrow. Then the six short setups, again, from highest dollar volume to lowest. MSTR, I am short this name, added to it a little bit today with Bitcoin like acting relatively weak, but the rest of the market very strong. I'm hoping that we do get like a rally in Bitcoin and kind of a rally in MSTR so we can test the 200-day moving average again and get better price action. But just through today's low, if Bitcoin is weak and we can see, say, PCE comes in hot, the rest of the market comes down, Bitcoin comes down. This, after a test of the 200-day moving average, an immediate gap down, just shows you that there's just an overwhelming amount of sellers in this name. And if you compare this chart to Bitcoin, so much relative weakness in here. You're under the 200-day, which is starting to flatten out. Things can get really, really bad for this name. So, while I wouldn't be focused on like sizing the short up like on weakness here, I would rather it like rally and then we can get a nice tight entry. It could be a spot to just add a little bit to your short position already and then play to the downside. HIMS, talked about this in prior videos, but really like, well, because I want to short it, really like the action on earnings day where we gapped down, we rallied up, went red to green, like a, I think this was like a 12% move from 55 up to 64 or so. And then we immediately reversed, closed on the low of the day, trapped even more people at these higher prices. And when you do stuff like that, it just creates so much selling pressure to the downside, where you see the second the market was weak, we had gap down, gap down, gap down, gap down. And then finally, we got a little bit exhausted. But even with the market strength recently, this was only able to get back to the 10-day moving average and resistance gap. Lower high the next day, yesterday, and then today, just really tight price action, no strength while the rest of the market was really strong. So through today's low is the potential entry. Stop would be the 10-day moving average in today's high. Galaxy, GLXY, just kind of wedging itself at the 50-day moving average and resistance gap here. Have, should have had that drawn. My bad. Little resistance gap here. Looking for an uppercut and failure of that spot versus the 20-day EMA for a really nice tight risk. You could size that up a little bit more. Otherwise, through today's low, I wouldn't size it as heavy because your stop would be wider than through like to the 20-day or to the gap zone or to the 10-day even. Um, but you have a higher probability of success when you would short this on weakness. QS, a name that was a leader here, had, or not a leader, but momentum leader, I would say. Went from 5 up to $15. Had this gap down off the highs, which is never a great sign. Secondary one here, and then we fell from $15 down to 8-ish, rallied up into the 20-day, another weak day on the 19th, and we just really haven't rallied at all since then. This is a name that I would feel comfortable trading on weakness through today's low and $8. Stop at the 10-day EMA. Root Insurance, another name that just sold off on earnings, super heavy, down 26%. And instead of bouncing back with the market, we've just traded sideways. Multiple failures of this resistance gap. One, two, three, four, five. Today's fifth one. Today was really probably the best risk reward spot on it as we put in a lower high uppercut and fail right at 92.60. Now it's more like now the better entry is on weakness so we can accelerate to the downside versus trying to play something on strength. But either way, you could watch set alerts in the resistance gap area, set an alert near the low, and you could play either of those ranges. And then PDYN, the thinnest stock out of them. And we're in a speculative market where thin stocks can break to the upside and run pretty heavily. So if you're going to trade this short, size it down. I don't plan on trading this. I plan on setting alerts and using this as a little test for the market to see if some of these weaker names start to break to the downside even further, or if everything's just turning around and getting more and more bullish. But we've got two uppercuts of the 20-day EMA into the resistance gap, and we failed there. Today we closed at the 5-10-day moving average, looking for downside through today's low, through those moving averages, at least to the 200-day. We'll see if that actually holds again, secondary test, or if that cracks and this can just like really start to accelerate to the downside. So that's going to be the daily market recap for Thursday, August 28th. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Good luck tomorrow and enjoy the long weekend. Take care.